遊びに行って帰らない。に特徴はキャラコンである。そして押すと回る。ラジオコントロールで動く。あ、そう。はい、じゃあここに重曹を締め、そして母音にキャラコンゴジラバンダイより発売中。キャラコン怪獣も続々登場。
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our very first official Collect All Monsters Pride Month LGBTQ Collector Chat. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. We've been trying to get this together for a couple of years, but it's very hard to corral all these busy people, especially during Pride Month, because we all got stuff going on, right? We got two collectors who were unable to join us live on the stream, but they're going to answer just a couple of brief questions for us before we all jump into it. So before we even do anything about that, let's just get right into it with the two collectors that sent in their videos. First one is going to be right now. Anthony Vacarro.
Hello, fellow monster collectors. My name is Anthony Vacarro. I currently reside in Orlando, Florida. I'm originally from New York. I guess to get started, my collecting journey started probably when I was in New York around 1990. I would go to Soho every few weeks to go to a Japanese bookstore down there. I think it was called Vacarro. That's no longer in business, unfortunately. But they would have a little corner of little figures, Bandai figures, the early ones. And every week I would buy one. And then the United on the Place, really nice guy. He'd tell me what was coming up, so I'd ask him to save me what was coming out next. And that would be my little journey every few weeks to go down there, sell and collect for a while. And then it just expanded till what it's become today, 33 years later. The movie that influenced me a lot was I was reading a book about Japanese monsters, and I realized there was a movie that was made in 1989 called Godzilla vs. Biollante. I had never known it existed. I'd seen Godzilla 85 and all the shadow movies before that. But I wanted to do a lot of research and find out where this was made, where they came out, etc. And I wound up discovering, they were the first modern Godzilla I considered modern in 91. Godzilla, and would turn out to be a real figure after a while. So I just kept expanding my Bandai collection. And then I started into other areas of that genre, such as Marmot M1. Then X Plus came along, and that's when the hobby really became expensive. But it's been growing. As I said, I've had the collection for 30 years now. My advice to new collectors is pick a category you like. There's so much out there. It's incredible. So pick one thing you like and then just start growing that collection and then move on to something else. I started with Bandai, moved on to some of the, the different paint schemes of Marmot and so forth. And then I went to Exoclot, and that's when the hobby got really expensive. And now I'm back to collecting old figures, Marmot, you name it, I collect it. So, that's all I got. But thanks for listening, and we'll wish everybody a happy Pride. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Anthony. That was awesome. What a great collection you've got. I got to meet Anthony a few times at G-Fest, and he's always a good guy to hang out with and exchange stories with. I also started my collecting journey in New York City, and the store is called Zaka. And it was in Soho on Broome Street and West Broadway. And the owner was awesome. His name was Toshiki. And he definitely got me a great head start in my collecting journey. So without further ado, let's head on down to Tennessee and talk to another really cool guy named Stephen Mounts. You're going to love his accent. Just wait.
Folks, I'm Stephen Mounts. I'm a big Godzilla collector. What got me intrigued in Godzilla was the 1972 Godzilla versus Gigan. My grandpa would always call me in the middle of the night to have me come over and watch it. And then my dad would go coon hunting, and he'd wake me up when he gets back from coon hunting. They'd have a Godzilla movie playing, and the one that stands out the most is 1972 Godzilla versus Gigan. And every time they'd go off somewhere in the middle of the night, they'd wake me up and have me to watch Godzilla or something like that with them until we all fell asleep in the living room. There was not a lot of places that had a lot of Godzilla toys where I was from. I always found a couple places in Pikeville, Kentucky. And every time I go to Pikeville, I go in there to see if I can find a Godzilla figurine. And if I happen to run across one, I generally bought it. I didn't have a great big collection until I hit G-Fest last year. And when I hit G-Fest and All Monsters Attack, that's when I went a little overboard. But, and, and I'm going back again this year. And I've really wanting to get humongously big into collecting, but the job I've got, they don't pay enough to kind of collect like a lot of people does, but it's okay. And let's see, and anybody out there in the LGBTQ wanting to collect, just find something that you really like. Me, myself, I like for it to look like whatever the movie is. If it looks like the movie, that's what I want. Just find out what makes you happy and get it. And happy Pride Month. Talk to y'all later.
Thank you so much, Steven. That was awesome. I could listen to that guy all day. I love that accent. It's so great. I know a lot of you guys got to meet him last year at the events that he mentioned. I've never met him in person. I can't wait to meet him in person this year at G-Fest. So, no, it's really fun. Have you guys met him before in any other?
Never.
I haven't, no.
No, he just seems like a trip, and I can't wait to hang out with him. So let's do something that we do on Collect All Monsters, and I'm going to try to do my best at it. Kyle and Leslie usually do this. Say hello to the people in the chat room, and my eyes aren't that great, so let's see who do we got here. We've got Helmy Abdat, which we love. Helmy always supports us. We've got Nathaniel Plummer, Fanciest of Cats, Valerie Gothic, Mark Rodriguez. We've got, let's see, Michael Hang, who does some awesome photographs. I love your stuff. Godzilla Train, 1090. That's Adrian Settle.
Adrian.
Let's see. Alex Sawyer. We love Alex. Alex does some awesome stuff. Larry Latham. And that's about all I can see. So if I missed anybody, please forgive me. Michael Hamilton. Did I say Michael Hamilton? If I didn't, hi, Michael. What's up? Thank you so much for joining us on this kind of special live stream. And I just want to kick things off before these guys introduce themselves about why this type of stream is important. And a lot of people ask, why do you need to do this? Is it really necessary? But I just want to clear up a few things first and foremost. So it's important just to sort of illustrate the incredible diversity within this collecting community and to, essentially just show visibility. We're out there. If a young LGBTQ collector maybe is reluctant to be his authentic self, he'll see us. He'll be like, oh yeah, I could just be myself. These guys are cool and accepting, and squash some of the ignorant stereotypes that float around that we can hear from time to time. It's not really that bad. However, if you're in a group of people in the dealer's room at G-Fest and somebody says, oh man, that figure's so gay, and not to say that we all don't have a great sense of humor. We do. We have really thick skins and we have a great sense of humor, but we kind of want to be in on the joke, not the brunt of the joke. And then one more thing, I'm getting on my soapbox for a second. People ask, why do you have to make these monsters gay? Why do you have to sexualize it? I don't think any of us here and in the community are sexualizing the monsters. We're basically making them allies for us. Just like Kyle did that awesome intro, Barugan shooting the rainbow heat ray. It's as a sort of an ally for Pride Month. I think that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to change, sexualize these monsters and characters. We're just trying to see ourselves on the on the screen and sort of relate to what's going on. So what do you guys think? Let's go down the list real quick and see what you guys think. Why do you think it's important to do a stream like this, Cody?
Well, I think it's
wait,
important.
stop. Wait, first introduce yourself. Sorry, let's do that.
I'm Cody from Cody's Kaiju Customs. Oh, it's over here. There we go. I'm a part of the Collect All Monsters crew, MWA, Monsters with Attitude. We do a podcast every month, pretty common. These type of streams and podcasts, they're important because I didn't come out until I was about 24, 25, I believe. It was only about 2 years ago, and it was with the group of guys that I am in the chat with every single day from MWA. And it was just such a comforting and loving atmosphere. It was like, you know what? I can be who I am. I can just be myself. And I think it's important to show everyone else that, because I know there's a lot of people out there who are like, I'll just suppress that. I'll never be like that. And it's like, no, like live your life. You got to be happy. So it's really comforting and nice to have a group of people that support you regardless of who you are and what you do. So it's really nice to spread that message.
That's exactly it. Well said, Cody. How about you, Donny? I know you've been out for many years in the community. So how do you feel? Why do you feel it's important for us to do live streams like this, especially in Pride Month?
Right. So first of all, I'm Donny Winter. I host the show Growing Up with Godzilla on my YouTube channel. And we, in that show, have conversations about how we have as Godzilla fans, have grown with the character and franchise over time. And this type of conversation is very central to some of the things that we talk about there. And I have to say that I didn't come out until I was like 18 or 19, but I knew I was a homosexual way before that. And when I was in high school, I like many have experienced so much, I experienced so much bullying, right? And that bullying has this tendency of making a person feel isolated, downtrodden, etc. So Godzilla for me served as some sort of escape and a catharsis. And I was able to, leave school after dealing with bullying all day, go home, watch a Godzilla film, and feel some sort of sense of belonging through these characters. And through that, I was able to see, like, okay, like if Godzilla can do this, then I can go to school and face these horrible people the next day.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah.
And I think that's why these types of streams are important, is because all of our experiences with the character and the franchise vary. They're diverse. And I think that that's why we should have conversations about them.
Outstanding. I love that. I knew you were going to say something really profound and articulate, and sure enough, you did. Right on. I'll talk about mine a little bit later when we get into the first question. But how about you, Chris? Introduce yourself and then talk a little bit about why you think it's important for us to do these streams.
All right. Before I continue, can I be heard? Am I coming
Yes.
through okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, I was having some technical difficulties earlier. I'm Krystopher Baioa, also known as Kaiju Chris. I'm on Instagram. I built Fusion Godzilla, the Godzilla suit.
Which is awesome, by the way. It's amazing.
Thank you. These kinds of things, what we're doing right now, is extremely important because of visibility. And I think that just with like how hard it is right now with everything going on in the world, where like it's an isolated feeling being a Godzilla fan already, at least for me. Growing up, I didn't know any other Godzilla fans, not until I found my first G Fest, which was like 20 years ago. And so it's like finding this community and finding like-minded people. It's this amazing feeling that like empowers me, and I know empowers each other. Yeah.
That's great. That's absolutely perfect, and I love that too. And we'll get a little bit more in depth with this when I ask my first question. Robert Dwyer, I think a lot of people know Robert. He's been in the game for a while, and he's been on Fresh Vinyl Live with me when I first got started with this video stuff. online stuff. Did we just lose Robert as I'm talking about him? Robert,
no.
what's going on? Robert,
Oh, no.
get your blank together, man. Come on. Making us look bad up in here. Come on. All right, so Robert is sort of in this limbo kind of thing here with his connection. Let's just pass it down to Jessica Etchells, who many of you know, but she's going to tell you a little bit more about herself while Robert's getting his blank together. Okay, Jessica.
Hey, what's going on, guys? My name's Jessica Etchells, as everybody knows. I was actually the very first openly transgender person in the Godzilla community. That was back in like 2013, 2014 time. I'm also trans lesbian. I mean, just like the rest of these guys said, I mean, we all get into this community and as far as getting into the Godzilla community, but then you also have this other community on the side where we're all just intrinsically connected and we don't know who each other is because, as some others have said, we're closeted. Like I was before 2013 and 2014 or whatever it was. So we just need to bring more of this type of content to the forefront to show other people that are out there that there's plenty of people in this community that it's safe to come out to. You have plenty of people to talk to. We just want to be peaceful.
Perfect. No, that's exactly right. And all of these reasons are exactly why we all wanted to do this from Collect All Monsters, and we thought it was really important. So, okay, there's Robert. Let's get him before he disappears again.
Yeah,
so, Robert Dwyer, please introduce yourself and tell us why you think it's important that we do these type of streams.
Sure. I'll try to get through this before my connection craps out again. Some people may know me. I've posted once or twice on the Collect All Monsters group, so you may have seen that. But the reason why I think it's important is, of course, mostly visibility. Especially in today's times, where it seems like all the vibe and press is negative. Of course, you want to see some positive role models. Because I don't know about you, David, when I was young, there wasn't a whole lot of positive role models back in the 80s. So
no, there was nothing. Very, very few.
And we want to, not repeat the 80s. As I always think about it, 7% of the population roughly is in this community. Even if we just take this group by itself, we have got 1,800 people in the Facebook group. So there's like 175 members that are technically probably part of the community. And we just want to make sure that you're welcome.
Perfect. Well said. Perfect. Well said, everybody. I love hearing that from you guys. And, we're all on the same page, and it's a really good thing. And I'm glad we finally got to do this. So why don't we just jump into my first. It's going to be kind of broken down into 3 parts, and we can expand on it as much as we'd like. We're going to try to keep this under 2 hours if we can. If we go a little over, that's fine, but we're gonna try to keep it, not too crazy. So, welcome again, everybody. Welcome to everybody in the chat room. Again, apologies for those I missed. This is not as easy as Kyle and Leslie make it look when they're do the hosting duties. I much prefer being like a co-host and just answering the questions, but I'm going to do the best I can. So, all right. So, just in case you don't know me, I'm David Dopko. I've been in the community for, gosh, I don't even know how long, a long time. And I started off on Fresh Final Live with Rich Iso and Robert and Kyle and a couple other people. I've done quite a few things that I'm really proud of in the community. The highlight is going to Japan with Kyle for the Hail to the King project. I love being a co-host on Collect All Monsters. It's a pleasure to hang out with those guys once a month and you guys. So enough about me. Let's just jump into the first question. So, where is it? There it is. I got my little notes here. So, just talk a little Oh, I'm going to go last, by the way. Just like Kyle and Leslie, I'm going to let Cody go first. We'll go down the line, and then I will go last and sort of sum it up. So, why don't you've done it a little bit, but why don't you talk about your collecting journey being an LGBTQ community member? Why don't you go ahead and start, Cody?
Well, I started collecting when I was real young. Obviously, I've been obsessed with Godzilla since I was just a little kid, so I was forcing my dad to buy me anything and everything that was Godzilla. I had a room full of Godzilla. Once I got to middle school or high school, I really kind of like fizzled out with it. I wasn't made fun of for liking Godzilla. It was just, I don't know, it was just kind of on the sideline. And then during my senior year, they started playing the trailers and the teasers for Godzilla 2014. And I was like, oh, I got super back into it, started buying more and more stuff. And then once I bought my house, it was bad. It was over. Every room has some type of Godzilla in it. There's posters all over the house.
That's another stream, Cody. That's another stream. The hoarding stream is different. We're going to do that later.
But yeah, it's been great to connect with people in this community. Like, I honestly prefer talking and just posting pictures and taking like cool nature photos with figures and talking to people about them than actually like getting the latest and greatest stuff. Like, the community aspect to me is a lot more important than the figures themselves. Like, don't get me wrong. This is my lifeblood. I love these things. I am so hard into Sofubi at this point, but being able to talk about Sofubi and be like, oh, what did you get? What are you getting? What do you want? I love it. That's probably the best part about this collecting journey.
That's a really healthy attitude, because there's some people out there who really kind of find it to be sort of a competition. They have to get the latest, and I want this, I want that.
Mm-hmm.
It's taken me a minute being a member of the community to sort of realize that it's not a competition. I like what I like. And just like you said, I love taking pictures. I love, sharing, stories about buying these figures with fellow collectors. It's not all about just everything. And we're genuinely stoked for other people when they get their grail. Like, I like nothing better when I see somebody post, I got my holy grail today. I had to sell a kidney, but I got my holy grail today. But it's definitely, why I love G-Fest. Just like you said, Cody, the toys are awesome, but it's the camaraderie and being in a group of people, like that many people, who you don't have to explain why you like what you like and why you find this piece of Sofubi like so appealing, and you don't have to explain it to anybody. And you can add the LGBTQ plus part in there too. That's another component to it. But anyway, I'm just commandeering into this thing. I'll talk later. So, Donny, why don't you go ahead and just briefly sort of discuss your collecting journey as a member of the community?
David, we enjoy hearing about your experience too.
I know you do, but you hear me once a month. I want to hear you guys.
My collecting journey began in like the early to mid 90s when the Trendmaster sets came out. And I'll never forget, my parents bought my little brother and I like all of the whole thing, and it was such a surreal experience being able to see at that point in time kaiju that I have never heard of, like case in point, Space Godzilla, right? So like I saw like at that point in time I had seen like Godzilla versus Biollante, but I never had seen those other films. So like I was like, what is Space Godzilla? What is Bashra? Like, what is this demon Mothra thing? Because I'm obsessed with Mothra. I was immediately transfixed by that. And it gradually continued to grow. The beauty of collecting is I think everyone does it at their own pace, right? I periodically will have people tell me like, Donny, why don't you collect more? I don't have like a huge collection, but I kind of shift my fixations when it comes to collecting. So like I went from collecting figures to collecting musical scores and soundtracks. So like that kind of became like my thing for a while. That's and cool. Now my fixation is collecting plushes. So this this gives me the serotonin, honestly. So
that's so gay. I love it.
It's super gay.
You can say that. You're okay to say that.
So like speaking of that, like as a kid, like I remember bringing in one of the Trendmasters Mothra figures. It was the little one that, well, not a little one, but it was like one of those electronic ones where like it would like squawk if you waved your hand over it. And I took it in for show and tell one day, and somebody called me the derogatory F word when I was in middle school, I remember. And now I wish I could go back in time with all of these and just be like, absolutely not. You're not going to call me that. No.
Right on, right on, right on. I'm sorry that happened, and yeah, that's why we're doing these things, to sort of make sure we kind of, if we open one or two eyes who are watching the stream or watch it like later on, then it's worth the price of admission, as I say. So, thank you so much for that, Chris. Why don't you go ahead, and the floor is yours.
Cool. So I remember very specifically my first time walking into the G-Fest dealer's room. This was back in 2003. Very closeted at that point still. But I just remember walking in and being completely overwhelmed because I had now all of a sudden all this access to figures and kaiju and different just things I've never seen before. Because again, growing up, it was very rare that I would have like possession of a Godzilla toy. My mom and dad would try to support my obsession, and they would try to look at Target and look for the Treadmasters, like Donny, like you said. I became very fixated on the little eggs. The figures, I forget it's like specifically what they're called, but there was like a green Godzilla egg, there was a Mecha Godzilla egg, a King Ghidorah egg, and inside were the little figures. Those are like a core memory for me. Those are like one of my prized first collectibles. But then fast forward to G-Fest, and I got so overwhelmed, and I remember like wanting to just buy the whole thing, and my mom was like having me on a leash, like saying, no, this is a lot, we can only go one day, and we can only go in one time. And so it was very limited at first, but then over time, I really started to collect like anytime when the SH Monster Arts released their figures. That's something I really exploded with, but then space quickly ran out. Now I've been collecting comics.
Nice.
Those are a little easier to store and maintain. Space is a really big challenge for me right now. So I have to make do with what
Hello. I feel you on that, Chris, because space is definitely a commodity when you get to a certain point in your collecting journey. So that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, have fun moving all those.
You know what, Robert? Stop using my own words against me. Okay, enough about that. Jessica, why don't you go ahead, take the floor.
So my collecting started in the 80s. My first Godzilla was the Imperial.
Nice.
And actually, I got the King Kong first, and my mom gave my cousin the Godzilla and King Kong for Christmas, and man, I was so upset. I was like, you gave him King Kong and Godzilla, and I just get Godzilla? What the F? What is this? I'm like, so she did take me to the store the next day, and I mean, my mom is amazing. And she bought me the Godzilla the next day. But then in the 90s, just like Donny and Chris, I mean, it's the Trendmasters. I mean, exactly the story that Donny said was, I got that big pack of the anniversary pack, and it had Space Godzilla, a new Mecha Godzilla, Vacarro, Biollante. I'm like, who are all these characters? I've never seen any of these before. This is before the VHSs started hitting Walmart or Kmart, wherever, depending on where you lived or whatever. And of course, back then I was very much still in the closet, because in the 90s or 80s, like, it was very taboo. Like, even when I did come out eventually in the early or 2010, 2009, I forget what it was. But anyway, talking about transgender issues back then was, you never heard the term transgender in whether it was the news, radio, newspapers, on the internet. Like, it was very hush hush. And then that slowly started to change as more and more healthcare became available and stuff like that for the trans community. And then that also ties into me going back to collecting, because I got this great job that I still work at now. I work in a research laboratory, and it was because of that job I was like, oh my God, I'm finally going to San Diego Comic-Con. Like, I can finally afford it. Holy cow. And somebody was like, why don't you go to G-Fest? And I was like, what's G-Fest? They're like, you're a Godzilla fan? You don't know what G-Fest is? They're like, you're missing out. So I went home, looked up G-Fest, and I was like, forget San Diego Comic-Con, I'm going to G-Fest. And that's how my G-Fest tour or story got started.
That's so awesome. And I remember I was there when you first transitioned, the first year you transitioned, because I never knew you as your former self. I know you now as your true self. And so that was at Chiller Theater in 2014 in New Jersey.
Yep.
And so it's been nothing but completely, you're just Jessica to me, and that's the way it should be. And I'm glad that, another reason I'm glad we're doing this is because the trans community is being vilified in this country now. They're the new boogeyman, right? Trying to just elicit so much fear and misunderstanding about the community, and drag queens too. I mean,
yeah,
it's so much. We take so many steps forward, and then we just get pushed back. So the more that we talk about it and push back the other way, going back the forward direction, the better we're all going to be, because I just can't believe that in 2023 we're still talking about the stuff we're talking about. It's just it astounds me. And that is the reason that we make a point of Pride Day, Pride Month, because we need to do it. If we didn't need to do that, then I say let's just get rid of it. And I'm looking forward to the day when we can get rid of Pride Month and Pride Day, because we'll all be treated equal. And the playing field will be level, but I don't see that day coming in the near future. We're doing the best we can by doing these streams and talking about it, and et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, soapbox. I'm coming down now. Okay, Robert, you're a little bit more sort of akin to my collecting journey, so let's hear a little bit about yours before I get into it.
Sure. Of course, yeah, I don't know how to put that. Yeah, David and I are in the same age bracket, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is the word, which is fine. I have no misgivings about getting older. It's perfectly fine. But yeah, I mean, of course, given when I was born, Godzilla and giant monsters in general were still in theaters and on TV.
Definitely.
When I was growing up. So, of course, as a kid, I loved them, Ultraman, Johnny Sacco, Godzilla, Gamera, whatever. I was a big fan. And yeah, I guess to some extent it was a nice escape. I can't necessarily say that would be the only reason why I would watch that stuff. It's highly unlikely. I just love it. I would say I wasn't really a big collector early on. Of course, my parents got me some of the cooler stuff, the Godzilla gang, the Godzilla Shogun Warriors, some of the regular Shogun Warriors, a few things like that. But generally, I didn't have a whole lot. And sort of in an effort to be adult, I kind of got out of it in middle school and high school, and which was probably a mistake because I wasn't particularly happy during those times. And the only thing I still had left over was a Yamakatsu King Ghidorah, which I still have, which I kind of has a sentimental value.
That's great.
And I met my better half in 1991, and once things
me too. That's when we met too, 1991. My husband.
And once things settled down, I was able to buy stuff, and well, not to make the story incredibly long, but I actually went to a Michigan Comic-Con, Motor City Comic-Con, and there they had someone hush hush selling bootlegs of the Godzilla movies that guy, stops me. I see the toys on his table. I'm like, what is this? And he's like, oh, well, this is Godzilla versus Biollante. I'm like, what? That
What's
actually
that?
exists?
What is that?
Well, I had read like that supposedly they were making that, but of course, like a lot of information back then, you didn't know whether that was a rumor or a mistake, and of course, we never, since it never got ported over here at the time, we didn't know. And I was like, really, that exists? He's like, oh yeah, you think that's cool? You should say Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. And I'm like, holy, yeah.
Yes.
And I'm like, but then I was basically lost. And like, I think I left with a couple of bootleg tapes and like 5 or 6 toys, and that's kind of where it started. And now it's a negotiation for every inch of space in the house for more stuff. I have a kaiju cave, but I won't lie, I've got stuff in every room of the house.
Oh, I don't have that. That I don't have.
And no lie, every single room.
Wow.
So,
impressive. Most
and
impressive.
it's just, and mind you, I don't actually collect a ton, but after 30 years, it because I never sell anything, or very rarely. I mean, I have, but it's extremely rare. So once I get it, it's usually there to stay. So I've built up quite a bit. So, yeah, that's, and here we are today. I still get stuff, and I just got back from Japan, right? So
yes, you did. You went on that awesome trip with Kyle in February. Was that February?
February, yeah.
February, yeah. So I'm going to briefly breeze through mine because a lot of people have heard it from my days on Collect All Monsters. But I was a little kid in the 70s, loved dinosaurs. Back then, there was no VHS. There was no Blu-rays. There was nothing. There was just watching it on TV, or as Robert said, going to the movies. Some of the Showa films, like in '73, like I remember when Godzilla versus Megalon was like playing at the theater. Mm-hmm. Sadly, I never got to see it. I saw it on TV like soon after, but I did see Godzilla 1985 in the theaters. But I was a little bit older then. But anyway, so nothing out there except for the Aurora glow-in-the-dark Godzilla model kit, which has been reissued many times over the years, but I still have the original 1969 box, which I treasure. I wasn't really bullied in school because it was kind of cool back in the 70s, and like no one really, everybody liked dinosaurs, and they were watching them on TV a lot because they did, even though they didn't have the VHS tapes or that kind of thing, they were still played on TV quite a bit in the area that I grew up on. So I never really got bullied. People kind of thought it was cool a little bit. And then middle school, high school, you sort of like, it's not cool to like that stuff. And I kind of like put it on the wayside. And I never got the Trendmasters. I never got the Imperial. I never got the Shogun. I missed all that. And then Star Wars sort of stole the thunder of the Godzilla stuff for me. I was really into Star Wars until that became uncool. And then, I went to college, and it was all about like, self-discovery and, my own coming out journey. And it's kind of weird because my collecting journey sort of started the same time my coming out journey started, when I first started going into New York City. And I was seeing like, oh my God, Kim's Underground Video. They have really cool gay videos, not pornography, but like gay themed videos, not that I'm like, no problem with pornography, but I was going to get like, My Beautiful Laundrette and, Longtime Companion and things like that. Those movies from the 80s. And kind of close by, they had bootleg copies of the Japanese widescreen versions of the Showa films. And I was just like, wow, okay, this is pretty cool. I think I need to get back into this. And then for anybody who lived in New York, I know Anthony was saying he was in that neck of the woods too. Kim's also sold toys to some degree. And the very first figure that got me back into my collecting journey was the Bandai small scale 1984 Godzilla, right? So I was in Kim's Underground Video picking up a video cassette or something. And back then I used to have just enough money to take myself into Manhattan. This is when I was still living in Jersey. Take myself into Manhattan with the train fare, get a bite to eat, maybe get a beer at one of the bars, and they were so cheap back then. And then, maybe there's a little bit left over to buy something. And I bought my video cassette, and sitting on top of the cash register were 3 or 4 of the Bandai 1984 Godzillas with tags on them. And I said, "Hey, just for grins, how much is that figure?" And he's like, "Oh, those are $5." And I'm like, "Ooh, I think I have enough. I'd be able to get home still." So I bought one. And then behind them on the shelf, there was 2 or 3 Showa King Ghidorah Bandai figures. And I was like, "Ooh, now that's cool too. So how much are those?" And the guy's like, "Oh, those are 25." And I remember thinking to myself, this is probably like 1988. I remember thinking like, who's going to spend $25 on a vinyl toy? And, you know, boy, did I eat those words, because that figure became my holy grail. All the years I lived in New York City, it disappeared. I never saw it again. And I always wanted that figure. And well, that's a whole other story. But yeah, and then like, so discovering who I am as a person, meeting people, going to the bars, being with a lot of gay people in the city, in the village, and reigniting my passion for Godzilla. It's all at the same time, so it's really special to me, and it's all sort of makes me who I am now. And I also, Robert, met my husband Keith in 1991. We've been together like almost going to be 32 years in July. So we haven't been married that long because we weren't allowed to, but we've been together since 1991. So
effectively married since
yes.
1999.
And my collecting journey is basically a little bit of everything. I like vintage. I like posters, books, model kits, Sofubi, X Plus, all of the above, which I think is good and bad at the same time. So that's my collecting journey in a nutshell. And let's just go ahead and jump on to the next sort of topic I want to talk about. So everything kind of ties together. So what film or show ignited your love for the genre and your passion for collecting, and what was your very first figure that you got? I think some of you had mentioned that already, but go ahead, Cody, and let's hear what you have to say.
So I was born in 96. I'm just a baby.
Oh my gosh.
And so I wasn't old enough to go see.
I could be your dad, man. Shoot.
I get that from everyone at work, man. And so I wasn't able to see 98. And if I did, I don't remember. My dad said he doesn't remember if he took me, and I doubt he did. But I do remember going to go see Godzilla 2000 with him and my grandma as a kid, because I loved dinosaurs. I loved anything that had to do with dinosaurs. And I had seen a poster for it, and I was like freaking out about it. I was like, that's the coolest dinosaur I've ever seen in my life. So naturally, my dad took me, and I fell in love from then. And shortly after that, I was on, I don't remember what it was. My dad's girlfriend had gotten a brand new laptop, and my dad was showing me the dial-up internet. This is how I grew up with. And I want to say it was Amazon, but I don't think Amazon was around back then.
I don't think it was around.
It wasn't Amazon.
Then, no.
But it was the Bandai 1954 Godzilla, and I saw it, and I was like, I have never seen that Godzilla, but I want it. I want that dinosaur, and I still have it to this day. He bought me that.
Nice one to start with.
Space Godzilla, and he has a Space Godzilla, and I kept the 54. So it's a nice little father and son reminder of where I started with collecting.
That's great, and you still have the piece too, right?
Oh yeah, I have the 54, and he has the Space Godzilla in a drawer.
That's awesome. I still have my 84, by the way. He's sitting right over there, which is cool. Right. So excellent, Cody. That's great. Donnie, how about you?
So I am a child of the 80s. My first figure was the 84 figure, actually. My grandpa picked it up at a garage sale, and I was transfixed with this figure. And then it gradually, like, my parents were both Godzilla fans, so that kind of was the advantage my brother and I had. So they started renting us, Godzilla films from good old Blockbuster Video. Mm-hmm. And so my first one was the Showa Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. Loved it. Was super interested. Was very invested. Yeah. So, and then what really sold Godzilla for me was watching the original Mothra versus Godzilla. The moment I saw Mothra grace that screen, my gay soul was like, beautiful, beautiful moth thing. Like, I need to, and then I wanted to be a Mothra fairy for like a million years, much to my parents' dismay. And it was really fun. And it kind of just continued spiraling from there. Spiraling in a good way, of course.
We
After-
all thought that. Yes.
Right. After watching the Showa era, then I was introduced to the Heisei era, and it was a shock to my system because I watched Godzilla vs. Biollante for the first time and was terrified. Like, little kid, did not expect. I was expecting Godzilla vs. Megalon again, not giant, tenderly. Yeah. Anyway, that's mine.
That's great. Now, my husband Keith loves Mothra too, Donnie, and one of the things that I used is sort of like, is this relationship really gonna be great? And it ended up being great. I think it was probably the first month that we were together. I popped in the VHS of Mothra versus Godzilla, and to see what his reaction would be, and he's like, "Oh my God, I love Mothra." I'm like, "There it is. It's good. It's all good." And he still loves Mothra, and his favorite monsters are Mothra and King Ghidorah. Those are his two favorites. Godzilla's somewhere in there, and I knew that he was a keeper. Also, when the first birthday, my first birthday after we were together, he got me the tin wind up Billiken, the brown tin wind up Billiken, which is, about $100 back then, and in that beautiful box, which I still have. So I was like, yeah, man, this guy's all right. It's pretty cool. And then once he sort of gave me license to sort of be myself, to show that side of me, then, being in New York City and like Anthony said, Zaka and Children of Paradise and all the cool things that New York City had to offer in the late 80s, early 90s, that's where I started to like fill up our tiny apartment in the East Village. But yeah, all good. Cool. Chris.
I love that all the gays can confine in Mothra in some way or another.
She's an icon. What can you say?
She's the best. All the colors, she's the best.
She is an icon. And Chris, before I let you go, okay, I watched RuPaul's Drag Race. I think it's hysterical. I love it. It's empowering. It's amazing. When are we going to get some Mothra twins out in there? Like, that would be like, I would be like full circle. That'd be like,
It needs to happen.
I can't do it. I look horrible in drag, and I've got way too much hair. So, but I would love to see somebody do the Mothra twins like the right way. And I think Rue and Michelle Visage and Ross, that all eat it up, I think. So
Halloween costume idea.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people do it at G Fest. I've seen females do it at G Fest like really, really well. But I'd like to see two dudes do their take on the Shobijin, the tiny beauties. So maybe we'll see it. Maybe this very next G Fest is coming up in a couple of weeks that I can't wait for. But
maybe gave somebody an idea.
I hope so. Somebody out there. Thanks to everybody in the chat room who's sticking with us. And if I'll give another shout out to you guys if I can do that a little bit later. But Chris, we're waiting to hear your answer to that question.
Yes. All right. So my introduction to Godzilla was Godzilla versus Megalon. I was really into dinosaurs early on, dinosaurs before Godzilla, and my aunt was babysitting me one day, and she just so happened to have Godzilla versus Megalon that she picked up from a swap meet. And she put it on knowing I like dinosaurs. And I didn't see Godzilla first. I saw Megalon first. And I was terrified. This thing that like drills up out of the ground. I remember not wanting to put my feet on the ground when watching the movie because I was afraid Megalon would like drill up underneath me. Really scared of Megalon. And then here comes Godzilla to save the day, and it's this T-Rex looking like lizard monster that I just am immediately captivated with. And according to my aunt, I made her rewind the film several times over. And then
awesome.
The rest is history there. As far as my first figure ever collected, I'm trying to remember the name of it. I'm terrible with names. I'll try to describe it, and maybe one of you can help me out. It's got a bootleg aesthetic. I don't think it's officially a bootleg, but there's like some guy online does these really funny, popular photoshops of photoshopping this figure in with him in different situations traveling around the world.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
What's it called?
I have no clue. It is a bootleg though.
I think it's
It
by
is.
a Chinese figure called Dorme. Is that what it is? And it sort of looks like Godzilla. Like it looks like a knockoff of the Imperial, but it has like triangle spikes on his back. Is that what you're talking about?
It had normal like maple leaf dorsal plates, but
Oh no, then I don't know that one. Oh, I don't know that one.
I remember
I
the
know the one
lips
you're-
being very much like lipstick. The lips were crazy.
Just like the Imperial, they really overdid that lipstick on,
Yeah,
on
so
that.
he's probably you're probably talking about the Imperial. Was it green
Okay.
and black?
Yes.
Okay. So
that was the Imperial. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was pretty much the only one in like the mid '80s that you could find. The Aurora reissued their kit. Monogram reissued the Aurora kit a few times in the '80s, but basically, do you remember KB Toy and Hobby Shop? You guys probably remember those. You guys are a little bit younger. They used to have that. That's it. That's the Imperial. That's the Imperial.
Yeah.
And they would have those by the cash wrap in these boxes. They'd have the Godzilla and then they'd have King Kong, and that started in '76 when the Dino De Laurentiis King Kong came out too, because they had those. I had them. I would make them fight a little bit too. I didn't have them. They were my brothers. I never got them. They were my brothers that I played with, and I pretended that I didn't like it, but I really did. But cool. So what was that your first? That was your first figure that you got, or what was your very first?
Yeah, I think that was my very first, and then not long after, all the Trendmaster figures came rolling in. I remember those eggs specifically, and I was so perplexed by the Mecha Godzilla egg. It was this silver egg, and out comes a robotic-looking monster. It really had me.
Oh, I remember those.
That's great. No, those are becoming like really collectible these days, and there's actually whole like Facebook groups dedicated to Trendmasters collectibles. Definitely not where I fit into the collecting journey, but I know a lot of you younger people. That was your gateway into it, and but that's cool. I was totally like denying my love for this stuff during that time period, so I missed it, and I don't find it nostalgic for myself, but I know a lot of you guys do. But hang on to that stuff if you can, because it's very collectible these days. Cool. Thanks, Chris. Jessica, how about you?
So my very first figure was the Imperial. The eggs that you guys are talking about are like that. So of course I got the.
Wait, hold that up again. Hold that up again, Jessica. You did it really quick. Let's people see what it is. Oh, nice. Okay. Of course, look at the one you chose. That's a coincidence, right? Not.
Yeah.
Those were so cool.
So yeah, those are. They have the whole set. I mean, they have Ghidorah, Rodan, Mothra, Godzilla, Mecha Godzilla, and then they came out with the second wave, which that one's a part of, and it has Anguillus. They redid Mecha Godzilla, they redid Godzilla, and then they added Space Godzilla and like Mogera. So
nice.
Nice. But yeah, as far as collecting started, my first was the Imperial, and then it stayed at that for a very long time until the Trendmasters came through. And I started with the Trendmaster play sets like this one.
Oh, nice.
So they open up, and it's a full city.
Like a little diorama in there. Yeah.
And it gives you figures and stuff like that. And my mom bought me a few of those. She found them at like Kmart or whatever it was, and she was like, "Here, I know you like Godzilla. Play with these." I was like, yeah, I love these things. These things
Here, play with these.
And as far as my first film, that was also Godzilla vs. Megalon. And that was also my first introduction to Anguirus. I same thing like you guys. I grew up loving dinosaurs, and my parents for Christmas they were like, "Oh, you like dinosaurs? Here's a dinosaur movie." I'm like, "Awesome!" I put it in, and all of a sudden I'm like, this thing shooting lasers and fire, and I'm like, what is going on? This ain't no dinosaur movie. What is this?
This is awesomeness. This is awesomeness. Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. So I ended up wearing out my first VHS of Godzilla vs. Megalon. I watched it so much. And then our local movie store finally got Godzilla 1985. So that was my second film right after Megalon, because that was the only other one that was available to me for the longest time. And I just dove in after that.
That's great. Now, real quick, a little addendum to this conversation. What is it about Angulus that you love so much? And did you know, was it love at first sight when you saw that movie? Were you like a huge fan of Ankylosaurus when you were a kid? Or like, what was it? I've been meaning to ask you this for years. Like, what is it about that monster, that kaiju, that appeals to you so much, your sensibilities?
So
the world wants to know.
Here's the reveal.
Okay.
All right. So this monster is, to me, the epitome of the underdog. It doesn't matter how much you beat on him, how much he takes, he just keeps getting back up. I mean, even when Mechagodzilla broke his jaw, he still had the power to get up and had enough sensibility to run away, to call his friend, to be like, yo, handle this. You know?
Good answer. Yeah, so you're rooting for the underdog.
Well, it's not only that I'm rooting for it, I've always seen myself as the underdog. I've struggled, being transgender and stuff. That's a very, very hard journey, and it's a lot of downs more than ups on the beginning of it, but then after you're all done, it's amazing to feel like your true self, and that's hard to explain to people. You
just explained it really well, and now I completely understand. And I love that you made the correlation between what we're talking about in this whole conversation. And your love for Angulus really comes through from what you just told me. So thank you for that.
Yeah, This isn't all made. I don't want anybody thinking like this is all made up. This story just for the show or whatever. It's really not. Like my from my heart, and like this monster really helped me through my journey, and that's why like when I revamped my entire collection, before I had this incredible Angulus collection, everybody knew me as the Queen of the Monstars because I literally had every single monster art.
You bought Biolante from me.
Yeah.
That's how we met.
Yeah, and so when I revamped my collection, my room looked like David's. I'm not saying David's room looks bad by any means, but it was just too. It was just too much, and I needed to get some focus. When you have ADHD, your brain is just like all over the place automatically. So I needed to rein it in a little bit. So I was like, all right, what's my favorite monster besides Godzilla? Angulus. All right. Perfect. That's my main focus. My part B is the SH Monster Arts, and then I have a very little Godzilla versus Megalon collection.
Nice. Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. I've wondered that for so long, and now it actually makes perfect sense because that monster does represent the underdog, and he keeps getting up when he's beaten down, and he has a thick skin, and he can take it. And he's just a good friend to people, and I see it, Jessica. I see you, which is awesome. So, Robert, What's your answer to this question?
What was the question? What was the question?
You forgot the question.
No.
What movie or TV show sort of got you going with your passion for collecting, and what was your first figure?
Yeah, that's not easy because that was like 500 years ago. But I don't. Thinking back, I mean, there was so much on, but I want to say I seem to remember King Kong versus Godzilla being on TV when I was really young. So that's probably my first memory.
Is that what got you hooked, or was it a different movie that said, "Oh yeah, this I want to continue this road"?
I don't know. I don't know if it was a specific movie because again, everything was showing at the time. You know what I mean? It's like everything all at once. I mean, as a kid, I mean, the probably the oldest thing I had was the Aurora model kits for.
Yep. Oh yeah.
But I only had Rodan and Ghidorah. I did not have the Godzilla, and they're long gone. Unfortunately, they got destroyed. Whatever. I was a kid. They didn't last, and so those are probably the oldest things I had. But I had the Shogun Warrior and stuff like that. But it's really hard to pinpoint. Like I can't even think. It was just all of it, really. I mean, monsters in general. I also like the Harryhausen stuff and 50s sci-fi, 50s fantasy, etc., etc., etc. I mean,
perfect.
I mean, I'm a nerd. I mean, what can I tell you?
Yeah, that's pretty much what my story is too. You guys have heard this on Collect All Monsters. I was a huge fan of dinosaurs, as we mentioned. My dad circled this movie and TV guide in the early 70s called Monster Zero. And he's like, I think you're going to like this. And I'm like, okay. Sat in front of the TV on the 4:30 movie, Channel 9, WOR. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Godzilla's a T-Rex, like the ultimate T-Rex, like somebody mentioned before. And when the alien spaceship sort of pulls Rodan from Washikazawa, the rocks, I didn't know what the hell Rodan was. He just looked like this blob, like this brown thing. I'm like, what is that? Because you can't really see what he was. And then it's like, oh, it's a pterodactyl, pteranodon, And then, they go to Planet X and they see King Ghidorah. I'm like, oh, this is it. That is what started it for me because I saw three for the price of one in that movie. And then I think probably like you, Robert, the next film I saw was King Kong versus Godzilla, of course, the U.S. version. And that's geared for kids. And I loved it, even though I'm like, wait a minute, that's the same music they used for the Creature from the Black Lagoon. But anyway, even back then I knew I'm a nerd too, was and still am. And then, of course, I saw the magnum opus that I still love, Mothra versus Godzilla. That's like a masterpiece. That's like a pretty perfect film as far as I'm concerned. So, and then again, I watched it all through childhood. Like back in the day when kids used to go outside and play in the summer, I would be like at the beach every day. I wouldn't even be in the house unless it rained. Then I'd be in the TV room watching TV, and that's when I watched Godzilla and Ultraman and Johnny Sacco and all that stuff. But and then I put it all on the wayside again after getting the Aurora model kit in the 70s. And I actually got two because I used to bring them to the beach and I'd play with them on the beach. And, what Rodan is over to my left? Oh, this one, Monster Maker 28. It's an awesome kit that I built. So the Aurora Monster model kit was it for the longest time. And then again, as I mentioned before, it was the Bandai 1984 small scale Godzilla that I got for $5 at Kim's Underground Video. And Krystopher, you said you were afraid of Megalon, right? I was afraid of an insect too. I was terrified of Meganeuron in the mines in Rodan. Okay, when I saw that, I was like, that really creeped me out. Those dragonfly larva insect things. And that to me is, that's why I love Rodan so much. Rodan has so many elements of horror that Honda borrowed from them. Like the whole, dark mine insect, mutated insect thing. But I was terrified. That's really the only Toho monster that really scared me back in the day. Matango was a little bit creepy, although I knew it as Attack of the Mushroom People. I didn't know it as Matango. But Megan Euron was the only thing that really, really scared me. Oh, and the Manster. Do you guys remember the movie The Manster?
No.
Okay, you got
Yeah.
you need to watch it. It's a Japanese-American co-production, and it's a total B movie, but it's super creepy. It's set in Japan, and that movie, it's like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of thing, where the scientist gets injected with his enzyme, and he grows another head on the side of his shoulder, and he just freaking murders Japanese women in bathhouses, and it's really scary. But Megan Euron scared the crap out of me. But yeah, so that's it. And now, as you can see, it's morphed into this like a little bit of everything. And now, interestingly enough, you know, we're going to be moving to a smaller house, and I'm going to be downsizing. So a lot of this stuff is going to kind of pass on to somebody else at some point in the near future. So I'm still going to be collecting, you know, forever as far as I'm concerned. But my focus is going to be really sort of, you know, laser focused on things that I really, really dig. And, you know, I'm starting to really like gravitate towards the Sofu because they're just so colorful and so bright. Like this guy that I had to have, because this is my representation of Pride. This is the Akamatenshi Shin Desu Godzilla. And again, it wasn't meant to be a Pride Godzilla, but I see it that way. That's the way I'm going to show it. That's why I'm proudly display it. If you like it, great. If you don't, too bad. You know, that's it. And then one more I'm going to show. This is the Mark Nagata Max Toy Company Ultraman. Again, not necessarily specifically for Pride, but I'm pretty proud of it, and I take pictures of it during this month. So, all right, that I went last. So there's one more kind of question, sort of topic I want to talk about, and it's this is an interesting one, and you can expand on it any way you like and interpret it any way you like. But what advice would you give a new LGBTQ collector who may be reluctant to be their authentic selves within this community? I know that's a little bit esoteric, but I want to hear what you guys have to say about that. So what do you think about that, Cody? What advice would you give like a young Cody who, you know, is like, goes to G-Fest and is closeted and says, hey man, this looks so good. You know, I want to kind of be myself, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be accepted. What advice would you give to that person?
It sounds cheesy, but it's simple. Just be yourself. Do what makes you happy. Because like the people that are judging you, the small amount of people that are going to look down on you or say something stupid, it's like, who cares? Who is that? You're there to enjoy yourself. You spent the money to be there. You might as well make the most of it. And I can't speak for everyone, but I've had a pretty smooth journey with this. Like I haven't had much guff or much BS from people. It's been a very accepting and loving journey. And I think a lot of people in this community can resonate with that and see that. And it's not a big deal to them, or they really don't care. Like most of my friends couldn't care less.
It's a non-issue. It should be a non-issue, right, Cody?
Exactly. Yeah. Like it shouldn't be a factor in anything. So go in there, do what you want to do, and buy what you want. My best advice would just be buy what makes you happy and do what makes you happy.
I love it. And don't worry about what other people think. RuPaul is my hero. I love RuPaul. RuPaul has this quote that I say all the time. What other people think of me is none of my business. It's true.
I like that.
What other people think, you know, they can think whatever they want. It's none of my business. So I love that. Perfect advice. Donny, how about you? What advice would you give to a young, like closeted LGBTQ collector who's a fledgling in our community?
Well, I will first convey, as I've been on a therapy journey, and my therapist told me something very profound that I've really internalized over the past few years, and it's you deserve to exist in the spaces you inhabit. Because when we are shamed or when we are minimized by other people, we often want to minimize ourselves as well. And I think if somebody shames you for being a Godzilla fan or collecting, and you then feel this instinct to minimize the things that you love, it all translates back to minimizing yourself, right? The things that we love are an extension of who we are. They're an extension of our histories, and those deserve to exist in the same space, right? And I try to tell that to younger Godzilla fans periodically, but I think LGBTQ plus fans need to hear that too. Like, if I were to go back in time and tell myself that, like, I probably would have had a drastically different mindset than I had when dealing with people who were being crappy for me liking Mothra, or for bullying in any sort of way. So yeah, I would say, like, you deserve to exist in the spaces that you inhabit, because the things that you love are an extension of you.
I love that. That's very profound, actually. Yep, there we go. Yeah. And
I love that.
I like that you brought up the minimizing of that part of you. I don't think you should ever minimize any part of you, and you shouldn't, but you shouldn't, like. I also don't like when people, like, that's the only thing that they can contribute is like, I'm gay. There's other parts of, like, for me personally, that's just one part of me. Godzilla collecting is another part of me. I love photography. That's another part of me. I love nature. That's another part of me. It's all together as one, and I don't necessarily need to grandstand one of those specific parts of me. But again, during Pride Month, I think we need to do this to help others, get into the same headspace that we're in now. And I say young LGBTQ collectors. I'm just going to say any, because there's some older people who are still in the closet, I'm sure. I didn't come out until, oh gosh, I was probably, 22, 23. And the hardest person that I had to come out to was myself. No one else gave me any problem. They're like, I don't care. I knew, or so what? Or let's have a date. One of those things. So the hardest person to sort of grapple with that was me. And once I was okay with it, it just didn't make any difference. But the hardest person, like, if you can't accept yourself, then you can't expect anybody else to. So you gotta just love yourself too. I know it sounds preachy and corny, but
no, that doesn't sound corny at all. Can I add something really quick?
Of course you can.
So Colton's comment down there, I think, is very profound, and it really struck me, because when you think about it, like, where we are now, we are all representation to some degree, right? Like, I think that, like, there are younger LGBT, well, even, it doesn't matter the age, like, there could be any sort of LGBTQ plus Godzilla fan who, may not be comfortable with themselves, who may not feel comfortable being in the fandom, but when they see, like, us having this type of conversation, that might mean something significant, right? And like was said in that comment, like, all of our younger selves, we didn't necessarily have that luxury at that time. Whereas, like, now, like, I think that we can at least supply that representation, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And I never had anything like this when I was growing up, Robert, too. There was no one talked about it. If you were gay, you were, in South Jersey, you were in the closet. And lucky for me, I didn't think or know or realize that I was on the other side of the fence until I was an adult. Then I could process it. So I can't even imagine knowing that you're gay from birth. Like, I didn't know. I had girlfriends in high school and college, and it was just when I was old enough to realize what this feeling was that I was feeling, and I just didn't want to go through the motions. I wanted the emotional connection. But I didn't have any outlet. I had no role models. I had no one would even talk. There's no one to talk about Godzilla toys either. Nothing. There's nothing back then. So it was really hard. And that's why, I think that through us, we can really help a lot of other people. And again, please tell your everybody to watch this. If they're not watching today, they can watch it on our YouTube channel at their convenience. So, and I want to do this every year too. I want to do this every single year, and hopefully we'll gain another person on the panel, which would be great. And maybe next year we can get Steven and Anthony to join the panel too, because I just want to hear Steven talk. But anyway, hi Peter, love you too, Peter. You're awesome. Let's see. So who's next? Chris, what do you got, Chris?
I would tell younger LGBTQ fans, I would say to them, don't you dare stop being a nerd. Don't you dare stop. You know, and you're gonna come across people that won't accept you. But in those moments, what you can do is accept the empowerment that this franchise has to offer, the empowerment that characters like Godzilla and Mothra and Anguirus all have to offer. They're there for you, and they will get you through it because it got all of us through it.
Really, really well said. And I never viewed them that way, but now I'm going to watch these movies with a different light. You know, I never, you know, use that tool to sort of like something I love to sort of like, you know, take a characteristic of a monster and like apply it to what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
That's great. I love it. Thank you. I just love that we're doing this, and I love everybody's answers because I'm learning too, which is great. Jessica, I'm sure you'll have something very interesting to say.
So I want to get a little bit more on the serious side. Not that you guys weren't serious at all. So the suicide rate for the transgender community is anywhere from 32 to 50% every year.
Wow. Unacceptable.
It's completely unacceptable. Having gone through my own transition, knowing what those rates mean to me, and what other people have told me that they've gone through their transition. If there's other people in the community, the Godzilla community, going through a transition, or whether you're coming out, or whether you need to tell your family, you have a backing, you have support, you have help. People in this community can be more than a replacement family. They can be your full family if you need them to be. It's really touching the way that some of the people in the community can reach out and I mean, literally, there's people in this community I think of as brothers or sisters, and I mean, Christine, for example, she is 100% a sister to me. Like, I will bend over backwards for that girl anytime she needs anything.
You mean my co-host on Collect All Monsters?
Absolutely. And so if you're going through it, just hang in there. If you know somebody's in this community that's a part of the LGBTQ plus community, reach out. We're here. We'll answer questions. We'll do whatever we can to either get you the resources or help you find the resources that you need.
Outstanding. Well said. Perfect. Bravo. Great. Robert Dwyer, what do you got for us? Do I have to repeat the question, or do you know it? You good?
No. I know.
Okay.
I don't know. Everyone seemed to cover it fairly well, but the only thing I'll add is, especially for people in our community, I'd remind you that you already have something in common with everyone around you. You all collect the same thing. So you already have more in common than you don't have in common. So I would remember that before worrying too much about your differences. I won't lie, I don't really mention that a whole lot when I'm interacting with people, a ton. But on the other hand, it wouldn't bother me if anyone did. And it kind of is what it is. After 32 years, it's kind of like, I'm getting old, too old to worry about that. And I almost envy, the incredible amount of better support that they have now than we did back in the 80s. So just remember, more people are with you than against you, and that will always be the case. No matter what it may feel like with the media. The reality is there are more people with you than against you. Just always remember that, and you will get through it. So.
Outstanding. Everybody, man, outstanding. And I can't even, yes. So much so outstanding that I am not even going to give advice to the LGBTQ plus community. I'm going to give advice to the straight people in the community. So
there you go.
Because everybody said everything I was going to say and then some. So my advice is to the straight people who are in the community, and maybe if you're in a conversation or you're in a group and you overhear something inappropriate or hateful, say something. If you see somebody, getting sort of like put down because of, it doesn't even have to be a gay thing, but it can be like if oh, you don't like Mothra, what's wrong with you? That's whatever. Just kind of be an ally, right? Exactly. Be an ally. And I think that's really important for me, and it resonates with me because when I was a kid, I wasn't really picked on that much per se. No more, no less than the average person. However, I did witness a lot of other kids getting picked on, and although I didn't join in it, I never stood up for them either. And that is sort of a regret for me because I wasn't strong enough to sort of take the focus on me instead of this person who's getting picked on. And I do regret that. And I promise I will always do that anytime I see it, anywhere in the community, anywhere on the internet. You guys know me. A lot of you know me. Like I don't play. Like if someone says something stupid or hateful, I will kind of jump right on it. And again, I think I can speak for everybody here. We are all a safe space. We're all allies.
Yeah.
Pretty much everybody in Collect All Monsters. And that's why I love our group so much, because we don't tolerate any nonsense. The minute something goes on, one of our awesome admins will nip it in the bud. Like we don't stand any kind of drama, any kind of hate, any kind of discrimination. And again, you can always feel free to come to any of us if you have any issues or you just want to talk. So I don't know, man. I love doing this. This was so much fun. And
This was awesome.
It turned out better than I thought it would. Yep. Gamera agrees. I just think that, this can go on and on and on, but I think we should end it on this because it's under 2 hours. We still got a bunch of people watching. And again, I'm blown away by what you guys had to say. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this for our channel and for our group. And please continue to support us. And if you like what you see, please hit the like button and subscribe. And let me see. Happy Pride, everybody.
Pride.
Yeah, happy Pride. Have a great time. And I hope to see most of you at G-Fest. I know, Chris, I'm sorry I'm not going to see you. Donnie, are you going?
No, I'm not going this year, unfortunately.
Cody,
but I will be next year.
I don't think so. Not this year.
Damn it. So it's just going to be Jessica, myself, and Robert. Robert, you better be going.
I will see both of you there, and I can't.
All right. So I'm going to try to do the Kyle thing. Can you put the banner on the bottom because I can't remember it. Until next time, our planet may be doomed. Our Earth devastated. Our monsters are in revolt, and civilization is in chaos. We must all unite and collect all monsters. Thanks, everybody. Woohoo!